Hey guys, we're checking out an awesome electric bike today. This is the Boar E750 Hunter from Surface 604. You'll notice there really aren't any graphics or highlights because it's using Kryptek camouflage paint matte to help it blend in and really speak to that hunter, the person who wants to go out, take a variety of paths. I realize I'm not exactly in the perfect hunting environment here. I'm at Interbike 2017, and the terrain is rocky, but you've got this brush and some trees, and this still blends in really nicely. I was taking some pictures earlier and just very impressed. I love this camo print. The bike, I guess I should back up. If you're not familiar with Surface 604, these guys are from Canada, Vancouver, Canada. And the gentleman, Sam, that I've been in contact with, I visited him a couple times, his family does hunt. They go out and it's like, well, we want something that's gonna let us get onto terrain that maybe other motorized vehicles aren't allowed, something that's quiet, it's not gonna produce a smell or alert the prey to our presence, that kind of thing. I'm not a hunter myself, but there's been a lot of learning, and I can certainly appreciate the electric assist components and just the build quality of this bike. So I'm going to do my best to explain that. You can visit their site or, chat with other people in the comments in the forum about the hunting aspects of it. What I can say is that it's relatively comfortable. Even though this doesn't have a suspension fork, this is a rigid aluminum alloy fork, you could replace it with like a RockShox Bluto if you wanted. You're going to lose the camo paint job, however. So they've used a sealed cartridge, tapered headset that's strong, it's durable, it's what you'd see on mountain bikes, and especially the fat tire specific forks. It's going to work. But again, it's like, well, then, comfort versus the look, and being able to mount this front rack to that fork requires these extra bosses and everything. 50-pound max weight on the front and on the rear. You've got pannier hangers on the rear, separate from the top platform. So see, the tubing is a little bit thicker here, and you've got those strips, so it's sturdy. You can load the top of it, and you can clip on panniers on the side. Maybe you can get some camouflage panniers, or make kind of like a ghillie suit like cover for your panniers. Same thing on the front, like a little bit of a narrower clip-on point, but you could also use bungee cords and just strap something onto that basket. The basket has the flat strips as well. One complaint I have or concern is that as you steer, see how the rack also steers? That can make it a little easier to tip or just to get going, because you've got the additional weight of cargo in addition to the rack. The rack does add a little bit of weight on its own. I was pretty impressed with the overall weight of the bike. I weighed it with the racks on and everything. This is using the standard 48 volt 10.4 amp hour pack that comes stock, and it was only 66.5 pounds. That's pretty good. A lot of non-fat tire electric bikes that don't have racks, let alone two racks, they're in like the 50 to 55. So 10 extra pounds for these really big tires, 26 by 4.5, not just 4.0, 4.5. So these are extra fat, Kendo Juggernaut Sport, big knobs. The knobs help to smooth out terrain. Of course, they also give you traction. And then, of course, the increased air volume with these punch-outs on the rim. So this is a single-walled rim, 100mm width, so that the tire can spread out a little bit more and won't get unseated depending on the terrain. These are rated 5 to 30 PSI, so the lower that you bring down the air pressure, the more cushion you get, and then the better traction too. So if you're in really soft terrain, maybe like kind of a wood chip situation or sand or snow, you do want to bring the PSI down. I was really impressed that the front has 13 gauge spokes and the rear has 12. So lower gauge means thicker. So they're really going all out. 36 holes, that's the most that I usually see on sort of standard bicycles. Some bikes have 32 holes. So you got 36 spokes. Just incredible. I mentioned the sealed headset before. You also have a sealed hollow spindle bottom bracket. So that's a little bit lighter. That's more of a mountain bike, like high-end part. And a lot of this is really impressive to me because the bike is priced at $21.99. It's built on the older sort of Boar E350 that was like white and not camo, didn't have the racks or anything, and that was like $23.99, $24.99. So for the price to drop and for you to get all these extra upgrades, including 180mm hydraulic disc brakes with these Tektro Ariga adjustable reach 2-finger levers. Adjustable reach is cool because you could bring them in if you're someone with smaller hands or if you're wearing gloves. And if you're someone with really big hands and you want to get them out of your way, you can put them out kind of the way they are right now. This bike comes in 2 different sizes. So I'm looking at the medium large 19-inch frame, but even then, you know, this is an adjustable angle stem, 0 to 90 degrees, so you can bring it up if you want to sit more upright. Maybe you're wearing a backpack in addition to having all that gear. For people who are a little bit smaller, you want to have that fit, they do have, I think it's like a 17.5 inch frame. So, you know, this minimum saddle height could go a little bit lower and the geometry might be a little bit closer. Both of them have this sweeping sort of angled top tube, which is very nice, makes standover height a bit lower. Just awesome. The way the battery is positioned here, the weight is low and center. And if you upgrade for an additional, I think it's like $400 or something, you can go from 48 10.4 to 48 14 amp hours. So that's going to get you even more range. You could add, maybe bring along an additional battery pack in one of your bags if you wanted to go that way. This does have a USB charging port. I think it's 5 volt, 1 amp. So it's type A. Amazon has these like angled 90 degree USB extender type things that could keep that out of your way, because you can imagine pedaling, especially if you had pants, if it was snowy, you wouldn't want to snag that. So you could angle that and then route it along the frame and maybe power your GPS, your phone, whatever kind of accessory you might have for hunting. I'm sure there's stuff I haven't really thought about, Garmin's or whatever. So there's so much to say about this bike, and it is purpose built. Look at this, the cables and things are sort of internally routed here on the frame. They do protrude a little bit at the bottom, but it's not too bad. A lot of electric bikes do have that. And again, I want to stress the bottom bracket is just, it's a little bit nicer. It is purpose built, you know, to enable to fit these wider tires. It sort of has to be. So the yoke right here is a bit wider. Even the chain ring, see how it just barely fits in here. One of the other things that's unique about it is, depending on the size you get, the crank arms will either be 170 millimeter long for the small medium frame, 17.5, or in this case 175. So you're getting a full cadence, nice long leg extension. It actually rides really well. And then at those moments where, let's say you're out on the trail and you do get a flat, or you need to perform some service, maybe the wheel gets out of true or something, the front has a 15 millimeter through axle, so extra stiff, extra sturdy. Most axles are just like a 9 millimeter skewer. So 15 millimeter, again, that's like a downhill mountain bike type of setup. It does have quick release, kind of a maxle that screws into the other side of the fork. Love that. There's another shot of the Tektro Ariga disc brake rotors, the 180 millimeters. So the front wheel is going to be pretty easy to service on the go. I think the rear wheel, not quite as much. And the trade-off is, well, you get a really powerful hub motor. So the older E350 used a 350 watt hub motor, whereas this is 750 up to 1,000 watts peak. It is fat bike specific from Bafang. You can see that the casing is a little bit wider, so the spokes give that nice strong bracing angle. It's not like a tiny little hub motor. And then again, 180 millimeter disc brake. The thing is, it uses nuts back here. So it's an 11 millimeter threaded axle, but with nuts. So you might need a tool to provide some service on the go. And you can see that there's the power cable. There's a quick disconnect, so you take the wheel off and you don't have to be messing around with the cables. You disconnect it right there. But it's still, it protrudes a little bit. Not too bad in this case because the frame is so wide, but if the bike tips, you don't want it to tip to the right, because that's where your derailleur is. Really nice derailleur and cassette here. SRAM X5, 10 speed, 11 to 36 tooth cassette, plenty of range in there. And there's this plate. If you see this silvery plate right here, that is a strain sensor. So as you're pedaling and as you're putting torque into the system, it responds really naturally, versus like a cadence sensor, which would be a little bit cheaper and just in the front. I have seen multi-sensors, and of course there's mid-drives now, which are very nice, but most of those don't have throttle option. So when you have a hub motor like this that's just completely separate, it doesn't really matter. Even if your chain breaks or falls off, that hub motor can still get you going. And I've been in that situation before, testing bikes where the chain did fall off. It would be nice to see like a chain guide. They have aftermarket ones that you can put here on the seat post that it's like a chain catcher kind of thing, a plastic thing. It keeps it on track. There's no chain cover for your pants. They might get a little greasy or snagged. There's also no slap guard back here. That's something that I'd probably grab off Amazon, stick onto my bike if I wanted to keep that nice look. Chips might show up as sort of silver and give away your position. However, a slap guard might show up as reflective plastic, right? So again, I'm not a hunter. They do have black that would match, and they would even maybe surround these cables, neoprene slap guards. But because that tire is so fat and so wide, it might rub on the side of that tire. So I guess, back to the sticker, you could even tape masking tape, a matte tape, and just put a bit on there if you were worried about the chain slapping around. But the derailleur is pretty tight. This is a bit nicer. Okay, so you're maybe not going to have quite as much bounce. Just little things, right? Like, I try to go through and be as thorough as possible with what I know and give you these up close shots so you can think about what you might want to change or improve about the bike. There is, another complaint here. It's like the cockpit's pretty clean. It's nice, and there's a quick disconnect here for the display. The display swivels, but it's not removable, so that's always going to be on there. Maybe glaring a little bit. The button pad's easy to reach. The throttle. It's a nice cockpit. But I mentioned the internally routed cables. The shifter cable, actually, shifter and rear brake are not internally routed. So they're right here. If you're trying to hang this off the back of your car, that could get pushed into the frame and just snagged a little bit. It's hard to do everything, and I suppose to build the strongest frame possible, it's like, well, how do you, they did internally route some of the cables. So I don't know, little room for improvement there maybe. 31.6 millimeter seat post, 350 millimeters long. One thing I would think about, and I think Surface 604 even does this, they sell SR Suntour NCX suspension seat post. So I was talking about comfort earlier with these extra big tires and lowering the air pressure a little bit. You add a seat post suspension right here. It is going to raise the minimum saddle height by a few inches, but that's going to just take the shock out of your back and your neck and even your shoulders if you're leaning forward grabbing that bar. So that's an upgrade I would think about. Freeway gel saddle. This is Cellular Royale. Really nice. That's a quality part. Coming back here to the rack, there's no lights or anything integrated into this thing. If you did add one, I would probably put it on the back of a bag versus the seat post so it doesn't get blocked by the bag. Or maybe if you're wearing a backpack or a helmet, sometimes they have light adapters. I realize the camo bike, the whole idea is not being seen, but maybe you're riding to the trailhead and it's night or early morning. Just want to think about safety. You could put a light up here on the front or maybe up there. All in all, I'm just really excited about this bike because it's so unique. Some of it's the paint, but also the racks and stuff. Those are really nice. And $21.99, I think it's only like $24.99 or something for the upgraded battery for that range. But this is above average. You're almost 500 watt hours with that battery pack. You should expect 25 plus miles, even in pretty rigorous terrain. I'm going to go off road and put a helmet cam later. We'll see how this thing does, but just getting over here and riding a little bit, it's been performing really, really well. The charger for it is only a standard 2-amp charger. It's about 1.5 pounds. It's kind of a plastic brick thing. They didn't have it, unfortunately, or I would try to show you. It plugs in here, and I would just keep an eye on that, because let's say it's plugged in and then someone bumps the crank arms, it could shear that off or tip the bike, snag it. Also, this little rubber cover, sometimes it's tough to get that to stay put. It just doesn't seat as well as it could. That's a complaint I made with this battery pack on other bikes. It's kind of a generic pack, but it's nice the way that it's positioned on the frame. There are no bottle cage bosses. They didn't have room, but at least you have, these racks and stuff. The battery does lock to the frame. It's got this handle for lifting it when you take it off. The pack weighs about 7 pounds. I weighed it separately so you could think about like, okay, how do I reduce the weight of this bike? Take it down to like 60 pounds instead of 66.5. Just take that battery pack off. Maybe take the front wheel off if you're loading it on the back of your car. Or if you can, get one of those platform hitch racks. That's really nice. So anyway, coming back up to the cockpit, we're going to hold the power button for a second here. And hopefully you can see this. I swivel a little bit. There's a 10-tick battery infographic. That's way better than the competition. Usually it's only 5 ticks, and you just don't get the idea of like, well, how much have I depleted? 25% increments versus 10%. This is way better. Speed and miles per hour over there. Trip distance, and I think if we hit that I button, it cycles through and says, okay, total, that's your odometer, 22 miles. Max speed, 25.1 miles. Average speed, 0.3 miles per hour. People have been riding slow. And then you go back and it says trip meter. If you double tap I, it takes you into all kinds of settings where you can change the readout, like miles per hour, kilometers per hour, that kind of stuff. So double tap the I to do that. We have a light button, which is just going to turn on backlighting right now because we don't have any lights integrated. And then the plus and the minus, that goes from 1 down here to 2, 3, 4, or 5. You do have to be in one of the 5 levels of assist for the throttle to work, and the throttle is limited by whatever assist level you've chosen. Okay, so my personal like I like that the throttle doesn't work in zero. That makes sense. It's fine, because if you get on this bike and you accidentally bump this thing, it can take off, you know, and kind of surprise you like that. And this kickstand is, apparently it's rated pretty strong, and it connects there on the seat stay and the chain stay, but I don't love it. I don't know, maybe it's sort of adjustable. It's just kind of like meh, you know, whatever. At least it has a kickstand. You could take it off if you want. But anyway, coming back up here, that throttle's hot, so it's nice that when you turn it off, here, I'm gonna turn it off. Let's hold the power button for a second. Okay, turn it on again. I guess I have to hold it. There we go. Boots up pretty quickly. Okay, it starts in 1. Okay, so the throttle's kind of like hot. Again, here, it can take off on you, so I would keep an eye on it. You might want to take it down to 0 if you're ever moving it, or just make sure that you're at a complete stop and that, you know, you're in 0 or off, because that throttle, this is a powerful motor. So anyway, if I'm in level 1 assist, I only get kind of like limited power on the throttle, and then the higher up you arrow, you get more and more power. But that means that if you're on the trail and you're just pedaling, you're trying to be efficient, you're level 1 or 2, but you need to climb a hill or pass someone, well, you have to come back here and click plus to get more power. And so it's a little bit of screwing around, but at least it's within reach. At least it has a throttle. You know, it'd be nice if the throttle overrode at full power all the time. So anyway, that's my one gripe about that. Might be time to just hop on this thing. I'm gonna ride with one hand first, just to try to show you the sound of that motor and show you around, but then I'm gonna put the camera on the frame. I do like the Wellgo platform pedals. They're a little bit bigger. They've got good grip. They're aluminum alloy versus some cheap plastic thing that's gonna bend and not give you surface area that you need. There we go. And then again, it has that torque sensor, so it should be kind of smooth. I'm gonna turn around here. Oh boy. I'm in level 5 and I just was pushing down a little bit and it just takes off. You know, thankfully the hydraulic disc brakes are really quite powerful. And I noticed it doesn't have brake lever inhibitors, which would cut power to the motor, but I think that's because it's a torque sensor. So a lot of companies are saying, well, if it's a torque sensor, you have to actively push. But I'm saying it's great that at least it has really good brakes. Okay, so I'm gonna pedal along. Very nice. Maybe you can hear it better on the smooth surface. Okay guys, you've got a super close-up of the motor and the derailleur. I'm going to switch some gears, use the throttle, pedal assist. Keep in mind you're super close to the motor, so it's going to sound a little bit louder than it does in real life. Look at those other parts of the video where I'm holding the camera to get some idea, because I realize one of the important aspects of this is being quiet so that you can evade your prey a little bit and set up base camp without disturbing the environment or whatever. So anyway, enough said, let's do it. Fantastic. We were able to reach the maximum assisted speed of 20 miles per hour. And that's great. You know, that's plenty of speed. You're slow enough that it's relatively efficient. You're not getting as much wind resistant as you know, depending on if you're on the concrete, maybe you're heading to that trail like we talked about. But it definitely feels faster than I was comfortable with in an off-road setting. There's some sliding and slipping just because of the terrain here. Like a monster truck or something. I went right up the side of this little hill, and I was trying to demonstrate how responsive the pedal assist was initially. It's really fluid because of that torque sensor. I'm digging it. Boy, oh boy. Level 5 assist. It's zippy. Oh man. Especially riding one-handed with a camera. This thing puts out a lot of power. I'm impressed with it, and I'm kind of inspired. I mean, I really feel like you could have some bags, ride this thing around, and not have trouble. Oh, there's the throttle. That's only a level 1 assist right here, so it's nice and smooth, feels a little bit more controllable, a little bit steadier to me. And then level 5. Okay guys, I'm wearing a stabilized face cam so we can take this thing off-road, give you some idea of what it's capable of climbing up with this stuff. I only weigh 135 pounds, so keep that in mind. I am going to use the higher level of assist, 5, and yeah, let's just do it. There we go, throttle from standstill, no problem. Easily making it up this path, almost to 10 miles per hour, but I'm easing off a little bit so that it doesn't get away from me. Oh boy, straight up that. Doing just fine. It's pretty fantastic. Kind of feel like I could go anywhere. Well, losing a little bit of traction there, but we did make it. Let's go down there. Woo! Definitely appreciating these big fat tires. That would not have been smooth without them. Got some air there. A little bit of wheelie action. You know, that stuff's probably gonna be too steep right there. Can see if I can make it up a little ways. That's about it. Oh boy, sorry about that. We made it up. We had a little bit of momentum. I want to be careful because it's a demo bike, but let's pretend we had to make it the rest of the way up. You just press that throttle, the bike's gonna climb itself, basically, if it can get traction. Let's see if we can... There we go. Yeah. This is great. I'm not having to push the 65 pounds. And if this rear was weighted down a little bit more and the terrain wasn't so soft, it'd be a little easier. Let's get it a little bit higher. There we go. Not bad. We did it. We did it. Yeah. Man, that's awesome. Woo. Came from way over there. I'm a little winded from just hustling up this hill, but very impressed with the power. And again, I'm a huge fan of the throttle. Just be careful that you don't forget, because you accidentally hit that thing and it's gonna blast off on you. See if maybe I can go down one of these sections over here. Oh, it's nice to just relax, use that throttle. See, looks like I'm on the edge of a cliff right here. Probably not a good idea to go down that. Maybe I'll go back though. taking this little path back to where we came from. And we can go down this section that we came up earlier. Very nice. That's those 180 millimeter disc brakes. Look at that. I was able to stop. This is pretty steep. I'm stoked. Look at that. We're just on the side of a mountain. I did have to get off to walk it up, but getting down is no problem. There we go. Let's hit that max speed now. Show you what 20 miles per hour on this thing is like. Wow. And I'm probably only at like 20 PSI right now, so it's giving me that nice, comfortable, squishy feeling. I'm not getting all beat up, even though the terrain is really rugged. Okay, let's try to climb that thing. Get some speed and the highest level of assist. No pedaling, no pedaling. We made it. Made it up. Stoked. We just had a little adventure, guys. That's awesome. Well, guys, I've had a blast. That's the Surface 604 Boar E750 Hunter with the camo paint job. For the full write-up on this, all the measurements and specs and stuff, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Of course, have fun out there and ride safe.